I'll kind of kick it off. My name is Doug Parrott. I am from Omaha, Nebraska. I'm a long time ago former television reporter, news manager. Worked several years for the governor of Nebraska, and then have been with public relations and advertising agencies ever since. And I've been involved with the Olympic swim trials since we first hosted in Omaha in 2008. I'm going to talk about public relations. I'll let Sandy introduce herself. Sandy and I used to work together at the same firm. And then if we don't hear from her, we'll just kind of take off. Go, Sandy.
Okay, well, so my background is media planning and buying. I've been doing that for a while. I would hesitate to tell you how long, because then you'll know just how old I am. So we won't get into that, but not quite the 5 decades that the company that Doug and I worked together on is celebrating this week. So media planning, media buying, media strategy, communication, and working closely with paid and earned media as well in order to, make the most of whatever money you might actually have to invest in media. So, and I got involved with the USA Swim Trials back in the day when we were at Bailey Lauerman. I did not have as much input on that as Doug, because initially there wasn't a lot of paid media. At least the majority of it was spent by a couple of traditional channels and didn't require a lot of expertise. But I was obviously on the team that worked on the first 2016 swim trials, and have been working on the 2020 swim trials with the Omaha Sports Commission this time as well. So.
Okay, well, we don't have a host yet, but I'll go ahead and kick it off until we hear something otherwise. My focus again is going to be what they call the earned media, but the PR and public relations has a lot of different definitions, a lot of different things you do. But for today, we're going to focus on mainly generating stories or coverage or positive exposure, which hopefully you can translate to your local swim club, but how we've done it for the Olympic swim trials and from other clients as well. It has to do a lot with the messaging and what you want to say, who's saying it for you, your spokesperson, especially building relationships with your local media. Hopefully you've already done that, but then we don't know where the clubs are from today. If you're from a smaller area, you may not have a weekly newspaper or television station. There you got to kind of branch out in different directions. Some of you may be in major cities where you've got a lot of competition for that newspaper and all the TV stations. But basically PR and getting earned media is the same no matter what you try to do. There are kind of 4 key focuses that I think really work for us, the Olympic swim trials and other clients that I've worked with. The first, again, is the messages. You've got to determine what it is you want to say about your swim club, about your event, whatever it is you want to focus on and you want media coverage on. You've got to know what you want to say and be prepared to answer the questions around that announcement or what you're doing. You need somebody who is effective at saying it. You need a good spokesperson, someone who is comfortable talking to the news media, whether it's a newspaper reporter over the phone or a television reporter who is doing it live. And she's back, so I'll hold off a sec. We kind of started in knowing you froze, but you want to say something as we get going?
I just feel so awful. I just lost my internet connection, and this is just the worst possible time that could have happened. So I just dialed back in on my phone and really apologize for that. So Doug, I assume you already made your introduction and have started talking.
We have.
Okay, great. Take it away.
Okay. But again, first it's the messages, what you want to say. Second, it is the spokesperson who's going to say it. Again, it's got to be somebody that's comfortable talking to the news media or talking to a Chamber of Commerce group or some makes public speaking, but they've got to be comfortable, because media and interviewing with them is not an easy chore. You've got to be prepared. You got to be quick on your feet. You got to know what to say and what not to say. The third key to that puzzle is the media relationships, knowing who at the television station, who at the local newspaper, who at the radio or sports talk shows you may have, who at a local newspaper. Who is it that you want to target and why? What do they mean? What do they bring to the table? But developing media relationships is no different from one market to the next. It's getting their confidence and knowing especially who to go after. It's kind of like the thing, if you sent a resume to me when I was hiring people and said it was addressed to whom they may concern, I usually stood up and say, is anybody concerned about this person that sent it? And of course, the answer is no. Well, it's the same with the media. If you don't target somebody and the right person, they're not going to care about the story. So you got to know who to send it to, and we'll talk a little bit more, I'm sure, during the hour about how to do that. And finally, the last thing, which a lot of people don't think about, is timing. Just as Sandy will talk about the importance of timing, when and how to do the paid advertising, social media, whatever, it's just as important in generating media coverage. There are good times, but more importantly, you need to think about when you don't want to do it. Because if you do it at the wrong time, media aren't going to come because they're busy. Here's the first great tip of the day. If you've got a big announcement to make, don't do it at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon. Media are like everybody else in town. They want to get through with their weekend, they want to get their stories filed, and they want to leave. I used to work for a governor, and I've held one news conference ever at 3:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. And that's because it was an announcement that we didn't want to make because we had messed up on a bill, but we had to make it. But I knew if we did it at a normal time during the week, there would be a lot of reporters asking her pet questions and pounding on this governor for an hour or more of time. So I did it on a 3:30 on a Friday afternoon. I called all our key reporters and said, you need to be here. It's a big, important announcement. So I didn't, quote, try to fool them. They came, we made the announcement, they asked 2 questions, and they left. The governor walked over and said, gee, that wasn't so tough. Well, it's because they didn't have time for questions. It was a Friday afternoon, they wanted to get out of there. So don't do it on a Friday, and look at your market and think of things going on and try to make sure you avoid them. In this market in Nebraska, there is one thing that dominates like nothing else, not just in sports, but across the news channels, and that's Nebraska football. It is the king of everything here. It's more important than virtually anything else that goes on. So we do not do announcements on the swim trials or anything else during the Husker football season, except when they are on a bye week and they're not playing. Then we usually jump in and try to do something. But to try to compete with the media coverage of Nebraska football, it's just not going to work. So think about your timing. And with those 4 factors, you can usually be successful at getting your stories out there, getting the coverage you want, and achieving the goals you want. I'll do a quick few minutes on kind of flipping to the trials in general. My relationship with the swim trials actually started in about 2000 when I was part of the team that came up with the idea of building a new convention center and arena in Omaha and taking it to the public in a bond issue vote, which we passed. They hired me to then help with the construction PR, the grand opening PR, and I've been a consultant with them for now 20 years. But the swim trial started in 2008, but we actually won the pitch for that in 2005. And in 2005, we promised USA Swimming that we would set a new attendance standard and kind of a new overall standard for hosting Olympic swim trials. We won the bid, and then we looked at each other and said, how are we going to do this? Because Omaha, Nebraska is not a big swim capital. In fact, the University of Nebraska men do not even have a swim team. But we had 2 things we knew would be in our favor. First is we have passionate sports fans, and because we don't have Major League Baseball and such, in the summer they're looking for events to go to, like an Olympic swim trials. And the second, the Olympic swim trials is unique from many other events because it's multi-days. It's an 8-day event. You need people there every morning and people there every night. And a lot of cities don't know how to handle multi-day events. But we have a great expertise doing that because for a number of years, more than 50, Omaha has been the host of the College World Series, which is a 12 to 14-day event. So we've been used every year to promoting something that gets people to come in the morning and come in the evening to the games. And then we translated all that to the Olympic swim trials. We did a couple of kind of unique things. And one of the things we found out as we were building for it and educating people is people kept saying to us, how are you going to build a 50-meter Olympic pool inside that arena? And we'd figured out logistically and engineering wise how we were going to do it. But people just didn't believe it. So we did something on the first day. USA Swimming, the Omaha Sports Commission, took over the Arena Convention Center. It was now our property to do what we want. The night before, there had been a Bon Jovi concert. They had moved out, and we started moving in at 4:30 in the morning. And that's when we invited the media. At 4:30 in the morning, the first day we had it. Why? Early morning TV. Everybody that's up is watching the early morning TV shows. And it was a great opening event for early morning TV. They could see the crews taking the seats out of the arena, so we'd have the depth to build the pool. They could see the activity going on in the convention center where another one was going to be built. They were there, they promoted it. They then carried those stories on throughout the day. We would bring them back every couple of days, and you could see that pool being built, you could see it being filled, and you could see it finally when it worked. And people started to see that and say, you know, I got to buy tickets for one of those events and go down and see this thing for real. And they did. Our goal was to beat the attendance record that was in Long Beach in 2004 of 120,000 people. In 2008, we had 160,000 attendance, shattered the record. In 2012, we had 167,000. And in 2016, everything went totally crazy. We did 197,000 people. Every morning and every evening was sold out. By then, the city and people around the country knew that Omaha and the Olympic swim trials was one of the best events in the country. And much of the credit for the publicity was because of public relations with the paid media that Sandy and teams have done, but getting that to sell tickets and getting people there. So I'll look forward to questions and answering things about it, but I'll turn it back to Sandy and she can talk about her portion of it.
Well, let me just jump in real quickly because I do want to ask a follow-up question on that.
Sure.
And it's hard to hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We're very lucky that once every 4 years we can hire help like you with our PR efforts. That is a once every 4 year thing we're able to do, and that's because we are generating revenue from ticket sales and have the resources to be able to do that. How do these clubs and LSCs who don't necessarily have the resources to bring in a PR expert like you capitalize on any stories that they have that they might want to put out there? If you could just give kind of some advice to these folks on how to use PR to their advantage without necessarily having a PR expert on their staff.
Yeah, and it's not rocket science. If there is local PR firms in town, you might investigate to see if they'll do it. You might see if they'd like to do it as a pro bono project, just out of the chance somebody there is passionate about swimming. So don't necessarily neglect that side of it. But again, find somebody on your staff and your club who has some passion for wanting to work with the news media, wanting to generate success, wanting to generate stories. Again, it goes back to thinking of what you want to say, and you can get a group together, a committee or whatever. Think about what you want to say about the club. Think about the stories that you might have that you could promote to the media. Think of something, you know, maybe you've got somebody in your club who's qualified for the trials, and you can promote that before they go. There was recently a story of somebody here in a local weekly newspaper who had qualified for the trials. They got like a half a page of coverage because it was unique to that local market and that local weekly paper. They had somebody going to Omaha to the trials. You can do the same thing. In fact, if you get somebody who goes to the trials, have them work out with you in the local newspaper or the local radio station, have them call back from Omaha and give an update on how they did, how it went. Do a Skype interview at the local TV station and talk about it. Get it out there to the club about what you're doing. It's again, it's building relationships, finding out from the media who are going to be the people you want to talk to. The first one you might be looking at, here's earned media and some of the other things I'll get into in a minute. But let's say, for example, at the newspaper, you've got a daily newspaper. You're obviously going to want to hit the sports columnist because it's a sports event. Swimming is a sport. But it could be a feature reporter at the newspaper who likes to do features on things like swim safety and things that you teach people and such like that. It could be a columnist who likes to do things on individuals who are unique in the community. Maybe you have a longtime coach, maybe you have a swimmer trying to make the qualifying standard, and you go with that. At television, you're going to want to focus on the assignment editor. That's the person who decides who is going to be the media coverage person for that station at an event. Obviously, again, the sports anchor, because swimming is a sports story. And then don't forget radio. Radio is a great market. You probably got a radio station in town that has regular news updates. Maybe you can set it up, call that news director and ask if they can do an interview. You may have a local morning talk show that allows people to come in as guests and do that. You may have a local sports radio talk show that'll even be more interesting. So find out your local media, get somebody or a group who are comfortable talking about this situation, and go after them. The worst that they can tell you is no. But in addition, news mentions, again, if you got a Facebook page, you can do things and have other people chime into that Facebook page and talk about the great things the club is doing. Social media is a big part of what's going on now. And I will tell you, I'm kind of the mainly retired PR fossil. The swim trial is one of the few things I still do. So I turn social media over to the person at the arena and USA Swimming. But we always kind of did that from the start. I remember the first time I knew it was better for me not to do the social media, but others, was a TV station as we were about to start the trials, called me up in Omaha Station, said, hey, Phelps is supposedly coming into town today. And of course, Michael Phelps in 2008 was everything to this trials. They said, we want to get pictures of him landing in Omaha. And I said to him, good luck. I don't know when he's coming in, and I don't know how he's coming in. Well, that night on TV, they had pictures of him arriving in Omaha. And I called him up next morning and said, how'd you find that? And they said, on his Twitter account, he said, hey, getting on the plane to fly to Omaha right now. See you in Omaha. All they had to do was figure out which plane was flying at that moment, and they were there and waiting for him. So social media is something that can really help you a lot, much more than the old days before we had that. So hopefully that answers the questions to an extent.
Thank you, Doug. Sandra, before I send it over to you, I wanted to touch real quickly on the news mentions piece. And Doug mentioned how you can get in touch with local news stations to let them know if you indeed have something newsworthy happening. I thought this might be a good time for us to pause. I want to show you a video of how one of our swim clubs did this just recently. I am fingers crossed that this is going to work. I'm sure that somebody on my staff is going to text me when this doesn't work. So please, please, please bear with me. And if anybody watching can text me and let me know if this doesn't work, that'd be great. And I'll shut it down. So hold on one sec. I really hope this, I am really fingers crossed here. Okay. Okay. Please work. Can you see this YouTube here? Oh, you see, do you see,
there it is.
There it is. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna play this video.
Sports, as a kid, it's not often you get
Yeah, I just don't have the bandwidth.
a chance to hang out and learn from the very best in the world at your chosen sport. That's exactly.
All right, this is too hard. What I'm going to do though, is I'm going to post the link to this in the chat so that you all can copy this link. Hold on one second. Hold on one second, folks.
While she's doing that, Caleb Dressel is going to be one of the main stories at the 2020 swim trials. He's kind of, many people think he may be the next Michael Phelps because of all the events he's qualified for and stuff. So in Raleigh, he's probably a growing superstar. And it's great to promote somebody like that. Again, if you've got somebody that's going to qualify for the trials, and especially somebody who may actually make the team, that's gold for you, because it is something that local media and, in fact, the community is going to want to know about.
All right, folks, I'm going to speak up. I'm really messing things up with technology, so thank you so much for your patience. Again, I'm going to copy and paste the link from that into the chat so that you all can grab that, put it in your own browsers, and see how the Marlins of Raleigh let their local newscasters know that Caleb was doing a Zoom call with their team. And certainly the local news crew was excited to to report on something so fun. And so there you go, free media attention for your team. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to somebody whose internet is working better than mine. Sandra, if you could introduce yourself and introduce the concept of paid media to this group.
Okay, and you all will have to forgive me if my allergies kick in. I may have to take a drink of water because the tree pollen is really high here in Lincoln, Nebraska today. Paid media. Let me back up a second, and I will just tell you that the most important thing you can do from the perspective of, we'll call it paid media, but it doesn't necessarily turn into paid media. It's anything that's not, let's say, a story or event or something like that, but it doesn't mean that you have to invest a lot of money. And the first thing that I will tell you to do is the same thing that Doug told you to do, and that is to, get relationships going with people in the media in your area. You would be surprised how much the media folks love to be on your board of directors or in some committee group with you to help out with events and things like that. And the more ingrained and attached and engaged they get to your club, the more likely you are to get them to help you out with things, possibly for nothing or for a very small amount of money, comparatively speaking. Also, they all have public service announcements that they can give to you if the message is meaningful enough to them. For example, as you come up on, well, right now, if you want to try to get a message out to swimmers that talks about what's going on in your community and what you think is going to happen and when it's going to happen, or give them an opportunity to engage with you, now is a perfect time to ask radio stations in particular, but also the local TV stations, your newspapers, all of those people to help you out. You put something together, I call it an RFP. Here's what I'm looking to do. Here's the message I want to get out. Here's how I want to do it. And ask them if they can help you. Ask everyone if they can help you. You don't know who's going to say yes and who's going to say no. We'll tell you that right now. Most of my clients are getting a ton of free advertising because the demand is low right now, and that time exists, and once it's gone, it can't be gotten back, right? So the media have nothing to lose by giving that away to you now. So again, get out there, get to know people, and make sure that they know who you are and what your goals are for your community, for your swim club, etc. And don't forget, there are a lot of media types that you may not think about because you don't use them as frequently as other people do. Never think that just because you don't do something or because you do something that that's what everyone else is doing. Know who your target audience is for a particular message. If it's the kids who are, you want to come in and join your swim club, if it's the parents of those kids, if it's community influencers, who is it you want to talk to? And then think through how those people consume content or use media. The older your target audience is, the less likely they are to be as engaged on social media. The younger they are, the more likely they are to be engaged, but it might not be on the things that you're thinking about because it's probably more like TikTok and Snapchat and things like that. So find someone young enough on your team to help you out with that. And really use media to its best advantage to talk to the people you are most interested in reaching, if that makes sense. But then, like I said, don't forget, there's radio, lots of local radio, and those folks are always, always happy to get engaged with you. Sure, they hope there might be some money, but at the same time, if there's not, they're willing to help you out for a good cause. TV and cable, you would be surprised at the number of public service announcements and things like that that are also available there. Granted, you can't pick your times necessarily, but you can get a lot of exposure in less, high demand time periods, like early morning and weekends and things like that, which are probably good for you anyway. Cable systems are also a great opportunity for you. Again, they have some great ways now to provide addressable functions, which means that I can say, I'm looking for households with sports-oriented teens and preteens, let's say. And they can show me how many people that their system has that target audience is represented by. And they might sell me a commercial for 25 cents instead of $25 because it's that few people. So again, don't assume you can't afford to do some paid advertising. Reach out and find out what your local market is like. And also, to Doug's point, if you know of a local media person in your market, somebody like me who has their own freelance consulting business, who maybe worked for one of the bigger agencies at one point, but is now out on their own, get them on your board too, because then you can reach out to them for help with the right TV station, the right radio station, where your message will best be seen and heard. And again, there are probably, unless you're in a very, very small community, there's probably somebody who you could reach out to.
And Sandra, if it's a small community, like you said, and there isn't necessarily somebody who specializes in, navigating the world of paid media, how does one do you just contact the radio station? Do you just contact the TV station? I mean, can you give a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to, let's say, the sales manager at the local TV, radio station, and newspaper and so on. And they'll normally will hook you up with somebody on their team who can help. The trick is really to find someone that you feel comfortable with and that you trust. I don't want to badmouth salespeople because they're doing their job, but you really want to find somebody who's more interested in helping you than making money. And while that might sound a little counterintuitive, I mean, Doug and I have dealt with this for whole careers. It's like you, as a good agency person, as a good salesperson, you should be invested in the success of the people that you're working with so you need to find someone who'll be honest with you. Who'll say, that's not enough money. If you only have X dollars, don't waste it. That's what you're looking for. Someone who'll give you good, sound advice on how to move forward. So interview them. If you've got the time, I would recommend that you make the time to get to know, get a representative from every single station, from every single media type in your market, and meet with them. Ask them to bring you up to speed on their properties and what they do, and have them sell themselves to you, and pick, the one or two that you feel most comfortable with, and, have them help you guide the process. That make sense?
Yes, thank you.
One of the things that Sandy said that I want to jump on because it happened here in a couple of occasions is first scour your own club membership and see who the kids are swimming and see who their parents are. In 2012, a swimmer qualified, and her father happened to be the editor of the newspaper, the major daily newspaper in town. We got great coverage because of that. This time around, there is a TV station in town that has a male weatherman and a female news anchor who are married, and their daughter happens to be on the verge of making the trials cut, and she was just being the top swimmer at the state swim meet. So they are passionate for it, and they happen to be at the station that is the dominant #1 station in town. So if you think they don't want to help promote swimming, you're wrong. So go and look in your own group and see if there's somebody whose son or daughter has somebody who's on the sales staff of a radio or TV station, or sometimes tied to a newsroom. Look first within before you go out, because Sandy's right. They could join the board. They are more than willing, usually in those factors, to promote it because it's something they believe in, or they wouldn't be part of the swim club to begin with.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to ask the attendees to contribute in the chat box below if you have any best practices, things that you have done at your clubs that have worked well in terms of engaging local media. Certainly put any questions you might have in the chat box, but if you have garnered some success with working with your local media, please offer those up here and we'll talk them through.
Or if they've had a challenge and something didn't go well for some reason or other, they can share that and we can kind of talk through how they may have been able to help it.
And the other thing I would offer up to you is, since we have a relationship with USA Swimming, as a media person, I have to subscribe to a lot of research and data sources and things like that, which my contracts usually say you are only allowed to share this with your client and no one else. So, but by virtue of the fact that all of you are part of USA Swimming, we're going to say, there are some things that I could provide to the USA Swimming team that might be helpful to you guys, just to kind of get started. Some research on how people use media, how to consume media, what's the best place for content to be. And I can send that over to Sandra and she can, figure out a way to disseminate it appropriately. Because one of the things that I think is most challenging for most people is understanding that that the way people use media is very different based on their age or their lifestyles or their way of being. And we all get wrapped up in how we consume media and the shows that we like and the news anchors we like and the radio station we like, if we like radio stations at all. And, and it's like, I never read the newspaper anymore. Sorry, Doug. I get all my news online. But that does not mean that when I'm working for a client, I should just say, oh, I'm never using newspaper. I'm not doing that. Because it's not about me. It's about the people that my client or you as a club are trying to talk to. And so it's always best to get an objective look at how media is being used, because it might even be some stuff you're completely unaware of.
Oh, we just got a nice note from Adriana saying, we're taking advantage of this time right now to form relationships with the media. Sports and news directors are looking for any type of content right now. Use this time to build the relationships, then maintain the relationships beyond this time with the context you've gotten. That's awesome, Adriana. Thank you.
Yes, that is brilliant.
Sandra, how does a club or LSC take advantage of the tactic of guerrilla marketing?
So, yeah, thank you for reminding me about that. Guerrilla marketing is a huge opportunity for you, and possibly a great way to get some earned media on your, tab. So it's just looking for other ways to draw attention to your sport. For example, get yourself a mascot, introduce, take the mascot out and about, do posters that you can take and put up in community centers and in gyms and workout facilities, or in community centers or grocery stores. Don't limit yourself to, you'd be shocked at the number of bulletin boards that are available and how many people actually spend time looking at said bulletin boards. If you can partner with local Parks and Rec, they may let you put things up in their facilities as well. So then, there's just so many things you can do from a guerrilla perspective. You can do sidewalk art in key areas, write your message on there. And I will caveat this with, make sure that it's okay for you to do that before you do it. You may need to get some permissions from your local community and so on, or from a store. If you're trying to put something in front of a sporting goods store, let's say, perhaps if you talk to them, they'll be like, yes, go ahead, do that. Or put up a table in front of those places and give out materials. Probably not now, but once this COVID-19 thing winds down a little bit, maybe we'll all be more comfortable with less than 6 feet of separation. But they're just give away pens, give away things that are representative of your, magnets and notepads and whatever, anything you can afford that's labeled with your swim club's information might be a useful thing to do. Or, donate something to the Red Cross swimming, or, some of the places where kids are first learning how to swim. Give them something that introduces them to your club and your facility, and sort of plant that seed early, if you will.
Thank you, Sandra. Shannon from Pine Richland Aquatics in Pennsylvania says, our team does a fundraiser every fall to raise money for the local Salvation Army and Project Bundle Up, raising money to purchase winter gear for those who cannot afford. A local news station runs a telethon. We've sent swimmers and coaches to present our money, and we've received an award for doing this over 15 years. The station and the Salvation Army sent people to our pool when we hold this event. So this is an interesting, I hate to say it, but this is a little bit of guerrilla marketing. You're marketing your team. You're doing a wonderful thing. This is called cause marketing. You're doing a wonderful thing for the community, and it's good to teach the athletes that, certainly. But don't ignore the fact that you're marketing your club there too, and you're getting some really great earned media from that. This is incredibly savvy and really, really wise, Shannon. So well done.
Absolutely. You've got to promote yourself first. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're doing. You're doing a good thing for the community, but others are going to try to get their publicity. And if you're doing something like that, and there's such a natural fit to what you're doing, that's a great story. And you need to promote it. Again, you need to find out. And if there's a television station doing a telethon on it, that could be the station you want to start really making relationships with for the future. As Sandy said, maybe at some point they'll run a series of PSAs for you during recruitment time. Just take advantage of any relationship you have.
Very true.
Thank you, Doug and Sandy. Are there any questions from the group? Loving seeing these best practices. Is there anything you'd like to hear from Doug and Sandra? I say that because we've gotten to the end of my questions. I want to leave about 20 minutes for Q&A.
Sandy and I can always wing it. We're used to that from the old agency days.
Well, are there any questions?
Well, there is one thing I should bring up, and it's tied to earned media. But the other thing you really need to do, again, you should probably establish a PR or communications or a marketing committee as part of your club, a group that has some passion for this, so they can look at how they can generate media coverage and such like that. But you also need to have that group ready should there be something that goes wrong and you have a problem with your club, and the media come out for that, and that's called crisis communication. That is just as important. You hope you never have to use it. That club never has to deal with the situation, but it could. And what usually happens with organizations that have something go wrong and the media knocks on their door and you know it's not going to be a positive story is you don't answer the door and you hope they just go away. That is not going to happen. That story is going to run anyway. So what you need to do is get that group together and think about what it is you need to say to put the right light on that situation. It could be as easy to say, we're investigating what happened, we're very sorry it took place, and we're doing whatever we can to help. Something just short, a statement like that. But you need to be ready in that type of situation. Just about every company that's out there of any size has a crisis communications committee already set up and ready to go should something go wrong. You hope it never has to be activated, but it's better to have it and deal with it then than to all of a sudden try to form it after the fact.
Doug, how do you, if you don't perhaps have a well built out crisis communications committee, how do you in the immediate deal with any sort of negative story that happens? How does one, any of these clubs and LSCs may not have the media savvy of a PR expert. How do you respond to the media right away? Is it better to say very little? Is it better to say no comment? Is it better to say, we'll get back to you when we have a comment? What's the best way to handle a crisis in the immediate?
Well, I'll kind of give it as a two-phased answer. If it's a really serious situation that you know is not going to go away anytime soon, that is the one time your club should look at spending some resources and hiring a professional PR person who can help you, because they're probably going to be worth their weight in gold for that situation. But other than that, you need to just have at minimum, have a statement that you can put together and ready to go. It could be as short, again, as to say, we're very sorry once we learned about this situation. We are investigating it. We're cooperating with local authorities if authorities are involved, or we're looking and we're cooperating with individuals helping us in the investigation. And we promise to share more information when it becomes available.
Thank you.
Something just so it's out there. The words no comment, in my opinion, the words no comment are the two worst words in the English language. No comment means I know and I'm not telling you. It's offensive and media love to use it. But if you give them a statement that expresses concern, sorrow, but keeps it short, that's going to be a better way to handle the situation.
Thank you, Doug. We got a question from another attendee. What are some good ideas to develop PR with local school board members? We use school pools and we need their help. Every couple of years, a new school board is elected and someone gets the idea that we can pay large rental fees. Any tips to help get our mission across?
You were breaking up on that one. Could you repeat it again, or let me pull up and see?
Let me see if you, oh, okay, I'm gonna try. Can you read it out loud, Doug? Because not everyone can see the question.
What are some good ideas to develop good PR with local school board members? We use school pools and need their help. Every couple of years, a new school board member gets elected. Yeah, they do. And someone gets the idea that we can pay large rental fees. Any tips to help get our mission across? I would say the best tip you could have is to be ready as soon as there's been an election or new board's ready, to proactively ask if you can find the time to meet with the board and proactively go out there and talk about what you do with them and the value that it's there. Don't wait for that board member to raise the question, but proactively go out and explain it in a positive, proactive measure. It's probably the best way to do it, because if you wait till that board member starts to investigate it, goes, why aren't they doing more? Then you're kind of doing it from a defensive situation and a reactive. So I just probably, and you know, you've obviously, if you're doing this, have good relationships with somebody in the administration, whether it's the superintendent, the head of finance of the school, or whatever. See if you can work out with them so you can explain the situation ahead of time rather than wait for that board member to raise it. That'd be mine.
Yeah. I'm going to sound broken up, I think, and I'm sorry for that. Can you hear me, Doug?
Yeah, it's a little broken up, but I can hear you. Sandra, you might be able to do it.
I think too, as a follow-up to that, perhaps it's about expressing the value that you bring to that pool, that having more folks in the pool, having a higher utilization of the pool yields better exposure to the school, or the events that you bring in, the swim meets that you bring in, does bring recognition and attention. And so I think probably also expressing the value that the club does bring to that particular school pool will help your case as well.
You know, the other thing that you can do is on your social media, give a shout out to those, to the school. Make sure that you're giving them, some recognition for allowing you to use their pools and facilities and things like that. They will appreciate that too. And speaking of that, so one of the things that is the least expensive way that you can get some information out into the community is to use boosted posts on Facebook and Instagram. Those are huge opportunities, particularly to reach the parent half of your audience. And generally speaking, you can do it for next to nothing in your community. And it's really easy to go in and pick a target to boost your post to. So you can go in and say parents of teens, la la la, or teens, or whatever, whoever it is that you're trying to talk to. And again, if it's something you feel super uncomfortable with, find somebody who can help you do it. But that is a huge, huge way for you to reach out into your community. And with the number of people on social media now and using social media channels, that is a very inexpensive way for you to use to reach the community as well.
Thank you. Sandra, we got another question. Any idea how to reach out to local schools to advertise about your club team? My team recently had to move practice locations 30 minutes from where we normally practiced and want to let those families and swimmers know that our team is now around nearby. So it's a good and interesting point. Is the idea is how do we recruit new swimmers in the area where we just moved our team to?
So lots of schools have newsletters that go home to the parents that they will sell advertising in. Or if they don't, as a general rule, do that, they may very well let you post something in there at no charge. So do that. There are also, church bulletins that you could look at putting an advertisement in. This is a great opportunity for the whole, putting up, we call, a guerrilla posting, put your flyers up all over that say, hey, we're here now. This is also a great opportunity for PR stuff. This is the news story. If it's a slow news day, maybe somebody will talk about the fact that your, swim club is now somewhere in that area and available to the kids in their community. They're trying to, serve their communities as well. Same thing with radio stations and so on. They tell people about this. That's a newsworthy kind of an event.
Well, and again, depending on the size of the school and the school district, there may be a local school newspaper. There could be a local school radio station.
That's true.
And they're always looking for content. Local school radio stations can be a great source in that type of situation. We actually, the Omaha Public Schools really embraced the swim trials. They had a local public radio station and they covered us almost as much as any other media in town did. And that was helpful. It got to a lot of families and raised awareness of the situation.
Another thing that you can look into is some search, Google search. I will tell you, just focus your efforts on Google. That's where 80% of all searches occur. But it's very possible that as a nonprofit entity, you can get a grant from Google to run search free. So look into that on your behalf and see if you qualify. But otherwise, you could spend as little as $50 or $100 in a month for Google search, especially for the kind of terms that you would be looking for. And again, I know that this might be foreign to a lot of you. Maybe if you've never gotten involved in search, it seems like an overwhelming idea, but you can find someone locally who can help you with it. If there's a local community college or a university, see if they have a mass communications class and get them to do this as some kind of a project for their class. But offer yourself up and see if somebody can help you build out some of the capabilities that maybe you don't have the time to do, or the technical expertise to jump into as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. There are going to be local schools and colleges and community colleges that, where students have to get some hours of work in these particular areas. Maybe you can get a free intern, if you will, to do a project for you as a nonprofit. It's a great idea.
Or they might do a whole, communications plan for you and do some messaging around it to give you a place to start. So I know I've done adjunct professor work at the local university at UNL here, and every single year they're looking for somebody that they can offer that up to give their students a learning opportunity.
That's a great point. Thank you. And everybody, I posted in the chat that link to the Marlins of Raleigh and how they utilize their local media to push a story during quarantine. So you can copy and paste that into your own browsers. We are just running up against an hour. If there are any more questions, please send them in immediately so that we can answer them. If there are no more questions, though, and we'll keep an eye out, I just want to thank everyone first and foremost for your patience with this. I couldn't be more frustrated with technology right now.
You survived it.
I appreciate your patience. I hope that everybody out there is healthy and well and staying safe. Meet us back here next Tuesday for our next round of SwimBiz. Keep checking our usaswimming.org/SwimBiz page, because we are actually adding more and more SwimBiz sessions. Folks saw Tuesday's session and then asked if they could participate in some more, which is great. We will continue this past the month of May. And so we will continue this as long as there is still an appetite for it.
It's been fun. Thank you. Hope you guys benefited from it.
Thank you, Doug and Sandra, so much for your time. Thank you to all of the attendees for making a little bit of time for us today. Have a good rest of the day and a great weekend. Thank you.
Stay safe.
Hey, bye.